and community connection. Please just relax and enjoy. Just a reminder that this technology is still new to us and it doesn't always work the way we want it to. So we may make mistakes today and it may be awkward and glitchy, but that's okay because perfection is not our goal. Gathering a sacred community is our goal. So we are blessed today to have a guest speaker and musician all the way from Massachusetts. Our guest is Meyer, and he has led music and worship for hundreds of services in congregations all over the US and Canada. Those of you who have attended General Assembly in the past have had a chance to enjoy his musical talents during worship services and other gatherings. He has a degree in hand drumming from Berklee College of Music and has studied abroad in Cuba, Ghana, and Central America. In addition to music, Matt is also an active community organizer and educator. So let's welcome Matt Meyer.
Well, good morning. It's good to be with you all from so far away this morning. This opening song is called Blessed Motion. It says, I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion. And this is a song that has been on my heart in these recent months. It's a song written by a woman named Annie Zylstra, and it was inspired by Martin Prechtel, who had survived an earthquake in Guatemala, a particularly horrendous earthquake. And he spoke after that experience of what it was like to see the ground beneath his feet, that which had always been so solid and so permanent, suddenly in motion, suddenly rise up and cause such damage around him. And he said that the myth of believing in solid ground is a myth believed by those of us who live on the earth rather than as a part of it. And I know in recent weeks and months, I've never in my life felt like the ground under my feet was shifting so quickly and so often. And so this song, I think, invites us to be in motion with the earth around us, with our communities around us, even while we're apart, and to find ways to move together. As Ginger said, I do invite you to remain muted, but please do sing along at home in whatever way feels best for you. This is a great time to sing out, try out some new harmonies that you may not have tried if others could hear you, and join in. There's a couple parts to this song, and I'll do them one after another so you can sing along for them. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. Now the low part. All moves on in perfect motion. All is change and ever rolling ocean. All moves. We'll do that low part 2 times more. In perfect motion, all is change and ever rolling ocean. All moves on in perfect motion. All is change and ever rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground, until I saw the earth in motion, the wind of steady change, and the ever rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, and the wind of steady change, and the ever rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground till I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever rolling ocean.
Thank you, Matt. I'm going to light the chalice now, and I invite you to wait until I finish. I'll give you some time to light your own chalices at home. Our chalice lighting words today come from Douglas John Traversa. In a world filled with the darkness of ignorance, let us bring the light of reason. In a world filled with the darkness of despair, may we share the light of hope. In a world filled with the darkness of hate, let us shine the light of love. Okay. Please join me in our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. So I'll give you a moment now for those of you who want to light your own chalice at home. And now back to Matt.
Our opening words this morning come to us from Mickey Scott Bay Jones. Together, we will create brave space, because there is no such thing as safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars, and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and more love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. And continuing on in song, the song is called We Shall Be Known. It says, we shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend the fire. In this time of shifting roles and shifting responsibilities, I think it's a good time to ask, whose are we? And as we struggle to play different roles in new settings, to be our best selves in a new world each morning, a changed world each day, who we count on, who we rely on, who we call up, who we take care of, who looks out for us, is part of how we find some stability amidst all that change. So again, I invite you to sing along. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round, attend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change, alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round, attend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change, alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round, attend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change, alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round, attend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change, alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Thank you very much, Matt. During our Zoom services, we have been taking time to spotlight different members of the congregation so that we can continue to get to know each other, even when we can't physically be together. So we've met board members, we've met staff, and starting this Sunday, you're going to get a chance to get to know the worship associates, starting with me. So today you get to know me a little bit. I serve this fellowship as chair of the worship committee, editor of the newsletter, and member of the committee on shared ministry. I'm a former board member and past president also. I'm also on the UUA Commission on Appraisal. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, where I attended public elementary school and then graduated from a Quaker school, Friends School of Baltimore. I went to college at University of Maryland in College Park and majored in early childhood education. I also have a master of education from Johns Hopkins University with a major in learning disabilities. I retired in June of 2019 after almost 45 years of teaching. And I started by teaching at my alma mater in Baltimore and then went on to teach in Milwaukee, New York, and Tallahassee. The last 20 years were spent teaching right here in Port Charlotte at Deep Creek Elementary School, where I taught first, second, and third grades. I've been married to my husband, James, for 37 years, and his career in journalism is what had me teaching many different places as we moved around for his career. He retired from journalism in 2008 and started his own business and is now a book publisher. We have an adult daughter, Adrian, who lives in Georgia, and an adult son, Adam, living in Ohio, and much to my chagrin, no grandchildren yet. Someday. I came to Unitarian Universalism about 27 years ago when we moved to Tallahassee. James and I had been feeling the need to provide our children with some kind of religious foundation. And we had both become disillusioned with organized religion in our early teens when we started asking too many questions. After trying our respective birthright religions, Baptist, which the kids were scared of because there was too much shouting, and Presbyterian, which James said put him to sleep, one of James' co-workers at the Tallahassee Democrat invited us to the UU church the very first Sunday we were there. And I very quickly realized that this was a religious home where my kids would be encouraged to ask questions rather than basically told to shut up and believe as we had experienced. So little did I know that I would also satisfy a need that I didn't even know that I had at the time. I've been involved at UUFCC since 1999 when we moved to Port Charlotte. And what I love most about UUFCC is having a spiritual home and community and singing in the choir. So now you know a little bit more about me. Now time for our book of life. In our tradition, we revere the living of our lives as a sacred endeavor, believing that the joys and sorrows we experience hallow the living of our days. We will now pause to give you a chance to share the significant events in your life. As the music plays, you can use the chat feature to share your joys and sorrows. When the picture of the chalice appears, we will have a minute of silence, followed by singing the spirit of life. Please remember to remain muted and enjoy singing on your own. the most important goals of the world's faith traditions is to bring humanity closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. One of the goals of this fellowship is to encourage all who gather here to grow more and more generous in both spirit and in action. Thank you all for continuing to be generous in your giving, because there are still bills to be paid, even when we're not meeting together in our building. Your gifts can be mailed into the office or donations made to the Venmo app that you can download to your phone. And so now it is time for Matt.
I start just about every day with a to-do list. I usually try and write it down on a Post-it before I go to bed at night, and the next morning I wake up and get to work. Usually, though, it is an overly ambitious to-do list. And near the top of that list most days is writing. I want so much to be a writer, but it's something I struggle to make time for. One of my favorite authors, Anne Lamott, talks about how hard it is, in fact, to just sit down every day and put your butt in the chair and write. She says the discouraging voices will hound you. This is all piffle, they will say. And they may be right. What you are doing may just be practice, but this is how you're going to get better. Some of the best writing advice I ever got was from a teacher who told me, don't write. Just write what you would write if you were going to write. I sometimes feel like I haven't written anything in all the years since then, but I have written about what I would write if I did write. You might call this the practice of practicing, learning how to practice. The demons of perfectionism stand in the way of good writing, just as they stand in the way of creative risk-taking in general, which is unfortunate because we know that creating a life that doesn't yet exist for yourself requires some creative risk-taking. And certainly being your best self in uncertain and anxious times requires some more creative risk-taking. And particularly these days when we are working together to remake the world anew, while we know that the discouraging voices in these times will always arrive, they will always hound us, saying that your efforts are just piffle. When the demons of perfectionism show up like this, I try to practice the practicing of showing up, for myself and for others. One of the requirements for all students at Berklee College of Music, where I attended school, is 4 semesters of ear training. Learning to sight sing music by reading the notes on a page, and learning to write notes down just by listening to a song. Now, when I began college so many years ago, I knew that there certainly were people who were capable of this kind of magic, but it certainly seemed like some kind of Harry Potter nonsense to me. Like, you may as well ask me to make a feather float above my desk using my conductor's baton. I remember that first day of ear training class in particular. There was a sort of nervous silence among most of the students. Silence except for one student, who was actually quite loud in his nervousness. This one student interrupted the teacher in the first few minutes on the first day of school to share that he was worried this class was going to be too advanced for him. He wanted to clarify that he knew, in fact, not a single thing about ear training. The teacher kindly paused his introductions to respond, saying that we had all taken entrance exams, and he was sure we had been placed in the appropriate class. The teacher tried to continue, but was interrupted again. Well, the man responded, is this the very lowest class? Because I need to be in the very lowest class. Now, our poor teacher kind of looked around the room sheepishly. You could tell that he didn't really want to respond, saying, yes, we were in fact a class of the very most basic students. But he said, well, it is ear training 101, so yes, it's the lowest. There is, he said, I guess a class for people who have previously failed the 101, but you all are just about the lowest. Now, some of the other students giggled a little bit at this man's anxieties.
I was kind of glad to hear, though, that someone was questioning what felt like the absurd notion that sight singing could be taught. I don't know what happened next for that student, but he never came back to our class. Not because anything we did on that first day was in fact too hard for him, but I think because he lacked a belief that improvement was even possible. I kept going, thinking that if other folks had done this before, it must be possible somehow, and I made a commitment to at least practice the material. And while I never became a master at ear training, I made it through all 4 semesters eventually. I've always remembered this student, though, who gave up before he started. It's not just that he didn't try to become brilliant at ear training, it's that he didn't even try the practicing of it. That always struck me as the real tragedy. When the discouraging voices hound me, I sometimes think of him and I remind myself that maybe for now, this is just practice. Practice is how we are going to get better. These last weeks have been a time of uprisings calling for change, calling for an end to white supremacy in our nation, calling on those in power, which in some ways is all of us, to play a different role, to learn a new tune, to practice some new skills. Particularly for white people, this is a time to practice some new skills and learn some new roles to play in this world. It's time for studying up on the racist history of this country and the racist present of it. A time for listening in deeper ways we haven't always done so well before. A time for having some hard conversations we haven't yet practiced enough. Fellow white folks, if you see black folks making demands, practice amplifying those demands by repeating them in calls to your representatives and to your colleagues and to your family. If you inherited wealth that was accumulated in a time of segregation, which is true of all wealth in this country, it is time to practice giving it away. If your muscle memory has been to call the police when something goes wrong, it is time to practice something different now. Learning the skills for community safety and accountability and alternatives to policing. I know I won't all of a sudden do all of these things, but I will practice the doing of them. Because musicians know as well as anyone that muscle memory is very real. That slow and consistent practicing changes the very structure of our brains, rewiring our circuitry, forging new connections and new possibilities, particularly when the new skills and new ways of being are constantly demanded of us. No one is born a musician. Even songbirds need elder songbirds to sing to them and teach them the tunes. Practice doesn't make music perfect, but it makes music possible. And so let us practice practicing together. Practice won't make the world perfect, but it makes a better world possible. Someday I want to be an expert in justice and compassion, even when anxiety moves in the air like a storm. Someday I want to be well practiced at creating brave space even when there is no such thing as safe space. These are daunting tasks to be sure, and on most days, learning to transcribe a symphony seems more manageable. But that's okay. For now, I don't have to do all of those things. I just need to practice doing what I would do if I were doing them. Beloveds, don't promise to be your best self today. Just be the person you would be if you were practicing being your best self. Don't try to rebuild this new world in the image of love this week. Just practice what you would do if you had committed to such things. You have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. Let us start together. Let us grow together, and let us practice together. May it be so. Our closing song this morning is called Let the Life I Lead. I originally heard that this was a traditional folk song from Ireland, but it turns out that it probably comes from a 70s R&B group called the Consolers. It's a simple zipper song, means that the words are just slightly different each time around. And so I invite you to sing along at home, try out those new harmonies, sing like you sing in the shower, and join in. Let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the friends I have, let the friends I have speak for me. Let the friends I have speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the friends I have speak for me. Let the work I do, let the work I do speak for me. Let the work I do speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the work I do speak for me. Let the songs I sing, let the songs I sing speak for me. Let the songs I sing speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the songs I sing speak for me. Let the love I share, let the love I share speak for me. Let the love I share speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the love I share speak for me. Let the life I lead, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. Beloveds, you have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. Let us start together. Let us grow together, and let us practice together. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you so much, Matt, for both your music and your words today. Matt will be sticking around during the social hour for a few minutes if you have any feedback for him. And now we extinguish the chalice, but not the light of hope. the fire of commitment, or the warmth of community. May those ideals shine in our lives and warm our hearts until we are together again. So now for the life of the community, a few little things to remind you about. There is no Social Justice Committee meeting today. I know that went out in the updates, but it's only the second Sunday of the month. Sometimes it keeps popping up in the updates, so no meeting today. Rev Dan is on vacation through next Sunday. If some kind of emergency arises, please contact the office or the board president, Lori Douglas. The second helping offerings for the months of May, June, and July were split evenly between the Harry Chapin Food Bank, CHAPS, and Meals on Wheels. As the need remains high, these contributions will continue in August and beyond if necessary. You may contribute at any time of the month and as often as you wish, but if you're writing a check or sending in a payment, please make sure you annotate second helping to assure that it's channeled in the right direction. So we'll now go now in peace, and just remember that at the very end, we're going to go right into our social hour.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. Let the Spirit of God surround you everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. Let the Spirit of God surround you
Our benediction today is from Joseph Cleveland. May we hear the melody of life and find ourselves singing harmony. May we be open to the dissonances in the song of the land and its people, that we might be part of the world's urging toward justice, peace, and love. May we feel in our bones the rhythms of life and the land and find ourselves dancing. And as Rev Dan always says, be a blessing to yourself and everyone you meet. You may now unmute yourself and let the social hour begin.